consistency over perfection. Like if you have a low, it's not the end of the day, move on. We can figure it out later, right? But if things go wrong, you can't just give it up. You have to be consistent with it because diabetes isn't perfect and it's never going to be perfect. And so as long as you can keep your goals in mind and be consistent with them, you inevitably will reach your target. You just have to be consistent with everything. Your workouts, your food, your deficit, your insulin regimen, all those things.
And you have to be willing to do it for a longer duration of time, because I think welcome to the Your Diabetes Insider podcast, where we take all of the mysteries of blood sugar control, focusing on nutrition, exercise, and any of the other 40 plus factors that may impact your blood sugar. If you don't know me, my name is Ben Zeal. I'm a registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator, strength and conditioning coach, and I've lived myself with type 1 diabetes for over 20 years. And I am here to share everything that I have learned in both my personal and professional experience so you can live that incredible diabetes life. So get ready and let's dive right into today's episode. What is going on? Welcome to another amazing episode of the Your Diabetes Insider podcast. And back by popular demand, popular request, we've got Kyra, our very own dietitian and diabetes goat. What's going on, Kyra?
What's up, Ben? So happy to be here.
I'll say happy 2025, happy new year, and another year and more diabetes things to talk about, more people to help, and more lives to change. And I'm very excited that we're here back at it, ready to help more people.
100%.
And of course, it's January. And by this point, most people have probably said no to their resolutions, but who needs a resolution when you can decide on any given day to start your goals? So
that's true.
I feel like weight loss is always the topic this time of year. And I know that was the big demand, was people wanted another episode of us talking about dropping pounds with diabetes and doing it safely. So what have you seen? There's always a trend every single year of something.
Oh man. Well, I feel like the ongoing trend has been Ozempic, other GLP-1s, right, on the market, because people want that quick fix. They don't want to do the work. They just want to take something to do the work for them. I know carnivore's still pretty big. There's a huge debate on that, I'm sure, going around the internet.
Let's go carnivore.
Gosh, what else?
Go carnivore for a second. So explain, if somebody who's listening to this has never heard of carnivore before, how would you explain carnivore to them?
You are literally only eating meat. I think they actually believe that vegetables are a poison or they're toxic to your body, right? Like you're not supposed to eat vegetables. And so it's mainly red meat, chicken, turkey, and I think they eat eggs.
Yeah, eggs are good. I pretty much equate it to just any animal protein source.
Okay. So does eat cheese and dairy?
I do believe carnivore involves cheese and dairy.
Okay.
I'm just confirming. Yes, meat with minimal carbohydrates, primarily composed of animal fats and protein.
Okay.
So yes, there are permitted cheeses. So basically animal protein is what you eat. There are no veggies. There is ideally no fruit.
Zero carbs.
No carbs, nothing else. And for people with diabetes, I mean, it's a very keto-esque parallel, but it's like taking keto to a further extreme.
For sure. It's extreme. All right.
And so with that, I mean, first of all, have you done anything remotely close to this? Because I certainly have not.
No, I mean, I've done keto a long time ago. I did it for like 10 whole months and it ruined me. So I will never do any of the sort ever again. But I've never done something where I'm basically eating like one food group. And
I'm not over here saying, because I've done keto and very low carb multiple different times throughout my time on this planet. But I'm not here to say, oh, this absolutely never do keto. It's never, low carb is never good. Like there are people where it fits amazing into their lifestyle and does great. 100%. Carnivore is kind of pushing it a little too far because you're cutting out a lot. And so the possibility of micronutrient deficiency is a little scary.
Yeah. And you're literally cutting out every other food group, right? And I feel like a lot of people will say it's great because it lowers inflammation, but you're literally cutting out every other food that's probably causing issues. Most likely all the processed crap that you're eating, if you are sensitive or allergic to gluten, that could be an issue too. Maybe you're sensitive or allergic to dairy. Maybe you're not eating that whole lot or as much as you were if you weren't on the carnivore diet. So I feel like there's a lot of like false results that people are getting.
I think that the thing is, like we were talking about micronutrient deficiency, and with your side cutting out some of the foods that cause inflammation, I will say like meat is very, dense. It's very nutrient dense, which is great. I think it's an amazing thing. There are still things you're going to miss by definition. And then also to your point, and I think this is the bigger point, it's similar to when people say, oh, intermittent fasting, I lost a bunch of weight. It's like intermittent fasting, you cut out breakfast and your weight went down because you're in a calorie deficit now.
Right.
The same thing, right? Oh, my inflammation went down. Well, yeah, when you cut out every single possible thing that may be contributing, you're probably going to see some sort of benefit. The question is also, can you sustain that benefit?
Probably the biggest question too, right?
Right. Like you could do it. Like I'm sure if some people say, oh, it's willpower. Oh, you just have to have the mental fortitude. Sure, you can, but at some point you may say, I want to have something that is not permitted and that is not just animal or animal based. Like you might want to have, I don't know, a salad or a piece of asparagus. And now you are going against the code of carnivore. And I think just anyone listening has to think about, can you sustain this for a long period of time? And by long, I'm not talking a week or two, I'm talking a year or two or more. And I feel like there's ways to drop pounds and ways to live a, quality, healthy lifestyle without negating every possible thing. And I have to tell you a story about this topic because the people who follow this way of eating are very, very excited to share with everyone. And I think it's totally amazing. Like if you're excited about something, please shout it from the rooftops. But at the same time, it does not mean that everybody needs to eat the same way as you. So I made a post, and I do posts on social, pretty frequently, but occasionally I'll go to Costco or Walmart or Target or something, and I'll say, hey, here's some finds you can have. They'll be blood sugar friendly. I try to pick things on purpose that may not initially seem like things that you would gravitate to, or maybe they're things that, might be helpful for thrown into a kid's lunch or a grab and go option. Like I'm not out here going to pick out a head of cauliflower and, a couple things of ground turkey that's 99% lean, because not to say these things are obvious, but like most people are going to recognize, hey, I should probably consider having some vegetables or some fruit in my life, unless you're carnivore. Or, if you're, a protein source, it's probably going to be blood sugar friendly, right? So I'll try to pick things that may not seem like it. And this carnivore person is very excited to tell me that everything I picked was processed and that I should only be picking carnivore foods. And the problem is, first of all, that goes against everything in the video that I just mentioned. Like, obviously, if I go pick up a veggie tray and I say, oh, look, here's some celery, they won't be happy because it's cut up celery and I just take it out of my backyard, right? Like, but I think the bigger thing is it defeats the whole purpose of the post. Like, obviously, I'm all about, and I know you're about this too, like the 90-10 rule, 90% of the time, have quality food options, have the protein, have the veggies, have the fibrous foods, have the foods that are going to be best for your health. And the other 10% enjoy life. But
100%.
It just throws everything off and just, oh, this is the only way to eat. You must have it like this. And oh my, like there's more than one way to eat. If there was one way to eat, we would all have figured it out by now and we would all be doing the exact same thing.
Totally. And like you mentioned earlier, there are a lot of people who do really well with low carb. There are a lot of people who just cannot do that too. They need more carbs in their diet, whether it's an athlete or not. Like everybody's going to be different on the level of carbohydrates and fats that they probably need to best function. So there is no cookie cutter diet out there, and it's probably not going to be carnivore either.
And right. And I think that there's elements from each of these different ways of eating that I think we can pull from that will benefit, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
If you said, hey, the protein aspect of carnivore, absolutely. Maybe for some people, the low carb aspect, maybe you go look at a paleo and say, okay, hey, I'm going to try to have things that may, the caveman, approach of, oh, it must have been around many years ago. That can work really well to try to pick less processed options that have all sorts of good things in them. When I'm putting these things on the videos, I'm not out here trying to be like, well, is there only 2 ingredients? Because then I can put no, I'm trying to, that you're a mom of a kid with diabetes and you want to throw something in their lunch so they don't feel left out at school. I'm going to pick that over picking apricot. Like, you see what I'm saying? But
100%.
I think with this though, right, it's like paleo. Okay. Trying to pick the quality options 90% of the time. Intermittent fasting. Okay, maybe you want to eat in a smaller time window because it helps you to keep a calorie deficit while you're trying to lose weight. Like there's things to learn for each of them, but is it one like perfect way? Although I would be really curious. I don't know your thoughts, but if someone just melded every single way of eating and just said, combine them all, what would we end up with? Genuinely, what do you think we would end up with?
Probably the standard American diet, honestly.
No, I don't think it'd be that bad. Do you really think so?
Well, it'd be a mesh of everything, right? Because a lot of them will contradict each other. So if you're vegan, definitely can't have meat, but if we have a little bit in there, it would probably equate to how many people eat meat on average. And I don't know, it would probably fall close to like our food guide pyramid that we have today.
Oh God, the pyramid is terrible. Or the stupid plate. I hate that plate.
Oh no, not the plate.
I know. Well, just because, again, the plate has the right idea, but just the wrong execution. And going back to the weight loss side of things, like we determined there's no one way of eating that's going to do it for everybody. Because all the keto people, okay, cool, you lost 5 pounds of water weight the first week. That's amazing. But the moment you eat carbs, the water comes back. Congrats. It's not actually 5 pounds. But
Exactly.
I think on the flip side, finding that way of eating that will work for you is going to matter more, that you can stick to. I still do think, though, one of the principles, at least from my perspective, and I want to hear at least one of yours, high protein. I don't think it matters what kind of diet I don't care what you're trying to follow. High protein is going to be absolutely paramount to maintain and preserve that muscle mass and stabilize your blood sugar.
Oh, I agree with you 100%, especially if you're in a deficit. The more protein, the better.
And don't go nuts. Like, don't be like, oh, I had 620 grams of protein. Like, that's probably not
That's overboard.
Right. The law of diminishing returns will apply. But on the flip side, if you tell me, hey, I'm having a really substantial amount of protein with every single meal and even with snacks, and I had a low blood sugar, let me throw a little protein in to keep my numbers so they don't tank again. I think that's a very viable option. I think that's going to absolutely do wonders. But like, what would be something you would say would be one of like the absolute staples? Doesn't matter what way of eating you're doing, but something you would say would help with weight loss.
Well, the protein one for sure, like you mentioned, and then adding vegetables, because vegetables are super low calorie. They're high in water density, and they're going to fill you up, keep you fuller for longer, and you're going to be able to eat more of that and still stay in a deficit. So that would be, right, exactly. Yeah. And to that end, fiber is really good for blood sugars too. So if you combine the protein and fiber together, you're going to get the best of both worlds.
And you can apply this, honestly, these two things to whether you're in a deficit, whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're trying to maintain, doesn't matter. I think those principles should be applied regardless. But at the same time, right, notice keto, you can get fiber in there, technically. Carnivore, not so much. So, I mean, there's been some weird things over the years too for weight loss that make carnivore look, but at the same time, I think, again, anyone saying or listening to this who's thinking, I want to lose weight, I want to go do an extreme, I would ask yourself, I'd stop and I would say, okay, would I rather go to this extreme, drive myself up a wall, possibly feel absolutely miserable with no energy, or would I rather do it in a way that is controlled, that is healthier for my body, that allows me to eat like a human being and enjoy the food I'm eating? I'd rather pick the second option. That's just me.
That's just me too, man. And there have been studies that show that yo-yo dieting can actually cause more metabolic damage than, other things as far as like long-term weight loss. So constantly going up and down on a diet is not going to be the best for your health and overall goal for weight loss either.
Well, and I think that's a really good point too, because so many people think, well, I tried this thing, now I'm going to try another thing. One person who saw us a little bit ago, they said they were on a 3-day water fast and they did a 4-day milk fast. And I'm like, first of all, I've never heard a milk fast before, but
that sounds terrible.
I'm over here like, no, thanks. I'm good.
No.
But I think the bigger point here is, if not so much, please, if you're listening, do not follow this. But the other thing is just thinking about when you're describing metabolic damage. That's what made me think about this, because people are like, hey, let me go to a really extreme level of calorie deprivation. Let me go to a really extreme level of calorie restriction where I'm now I'm throwing a number out there, 300 calories a day, and my body's used to eating 2,300 a day. Amazing. Cool. You might very short term lose a little bit of weight, but it's likely going to be muscle, which is going to harm your insulin sensitivity and decrease your overall metabolic rate. But then on top of that, it's not what you want to actually be losing. And on top of that, you feel like trash. So then when you say, I'm starving, I just didn't eat for so long, let me go get some food, you are going to overcompensate. Your weight's going to fly back up to where you were and then add some on top.
Then some. Yeah, that's a good point.
That's the problem. And that's why I feel like slow, sustained, steady. Like I've had times, and I joke with Amelia with this, but like there's times where I've been in a deficit. I've had to figure out what works for me, especially when we were prepping, like before our wedding, people want to look good. And so we're no exception. And I remember we'd go out, we would have a great dinner. It would be awesome. We'd go out to dinner somewhere on a date night. And I ate normal food, and it still contributed toward my overall weight loss. Like, you don't have to deprive yourself actually successfully lose weight. I think it's all about the sustainability. And then also secondarily, and this is the part I want you to start jamming on a little, is the blood sugars. So
Yeah.
what's the key that you've seen with blood sugars and people that are losing weight? Because I know blood sugars and weight loss go hand in hand.
They really do. And there's a lot of things that can happen as you start to lose weight when it comes to your blood sugars. So I know that we've mentioned this on the pod before, but when you are in a deficit, it's always good to keep in mind a calorie reserve for low blood sugars. So 150 to 200 calories less than what your total goal is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you can save those calories for a low if it happens. That way you're not going over your goal and you have things still in line with your deficit. Another thing is people tend to have more lows when they're starting to lose weight. So you'll have to keep in mind your insulin regimen and you might have to dial those back or in, because those will inevitably change.
Well, and talking with the care team that you have about that, I think would be absolutely paramount, because you're becoming a, literally physical, smaller version of yourself. So if you lose, even if it just feels like, oh, I only lost, 3 or 4 pounds, that can be enough for your entire insulin sensitivity to explode. And then wondering, oh my God, why am I low every 5 seconds? And part of it is your body is like, where's the rest of my food? Where is it? You usually give me this much and you're only giving me this much now, and it's way less. Where's the rest of it? I need it. Bloodstream, glucose, go. And now you're taking. So I think those tweaks with your care team, ideally you're working on this. If you're listening to this, you're working on your weight loss with a registered dietitian, with a diabetes educator. So both areas are covered.
Yes.
You get your tweaks. You know what you need to do food-wise to stabilize, and you know what you need to do food-wise to drop the weight. And then, of course, you need adjustments. You've got that same person, ideally same person, in your corner as well.
1,000%.
I mean, I know you work with people on this every single solitary day, and you have some wizardry that you have done.
It's consistency too, consistency over perfection. Like if you have a low, it's not the end of the day, move on. We can figure it out later. Right. But if things go wrong, you can't just give it up. You have to be consistent with it, because diabetes isn't perfect and it's never going to be perfect. And so as long as you can keep your goals in mind and be consistent with them, you inevitably will reach your target. You just have to be consistent with everything, your workouts, your food, your deficit, your insulin regimen, all those things.
And you have to be willing to do it for a longer duration of time, because I think in today's, some people I've heard it called microwave society, but I've also heard of it, where it's just instant gratification, like microwave. Oh yeah. The microwave, 2 minutes later, dang, it's all warm and ready to eat. Like,
it's hilarious.
I don't know where I heard it. I heard it a few weeks ago. I'm like, oh, I kind of like this, but regardless, everyone wants it now. And I don't blame them, right? Like I would want to, I want to drop 5 pounds. Cool. It's gone. But to me, it's like, okay, cool. First of all, it's one thing to lose it. It's another thing to sustain it. But then secondarily, there has to be a patience aspect. It's kind of like, you always hear about people saying, oh, let me, get rich quick. Doesn't usually work out very well, but you want to sustain it over time. And now you've got everybody asking about the GLP-1s, the Ozempics, the Mounjaros, the Wegovy's. And what is your take on those and their role for weight loss for people with diabetes?
For people with diabetes?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. I feel like it's a last resort for anybody, regardless if you have diabetes or not. And honestly, I feel like it shouldn't be doubled out like it is to people who don't have diabetes. But I feel like it's an absolute last resort, and people should really take a hard look at their diet and their exercise regimen before anything else, because in the grand scheme of things, the GLP-1s are not a long-term result for you. Like they're not going to keep the weight off for you unless you take them forever, which in this case, we don't even have studies on long-term effects of these drugs yet. And so if anything, it's the last resort. I think, they're just that, it's like same day Amazon kind of relief that people like, like I'll take this shot and then 2 weeks later, I'll be 5 pounds down. Like it's not worth it, in my opinion.
Well, and I think to your point, the thing that you were alluding to very, very well is that it's not going to do it all for you. Like it can help springboard. If somebody's really stuck, they've done everything nutritionally, they've done everything from an exercise standpoint, their blood sugars are well controlled, and there's something still just off. I think absolutely it's worth having the conversation with their care team. But on the side, what I don't think is if you just immediately say, I want to drop pounds, I'm going to go get my doctor to prescribe me one of these, because you're not solving anything. You are just saying, okay, I'm fixing the symptom instead of the underlying problem. And then when you're done, there have been studies that have shown this, where people get off of them and they lost 30 pounds and it goes right back up. And to what you mentioned before, it overshoots and then they gain more weight back because
Exactly.
nothing was learned. You didn't fix the root of the problem. I think as a, complementary therapy, not like compliment, like yay, fun, but like compliment, like something alongside of it. I think that with the nutrition and the exercise component can work wonders. I've seen it work wonders. We've had patients, someone over 90 pounds, one person over 140 pounds, and they've kept it off, which is the most important thing. But the difference is they didn't just take it and they're done with it. They took it in conjunction with they're training their butt off. They're going to the gym consistently. They're eating in a way that serves their body and is appropriate and hits on the fiber and the protein and the veggies and the things we were talking about before. So they're taking that
100%.
and adding it to it.
Exactly. And once they come off of these GLP-1s, because most people will come off at some point, they'll have those healthy habits and that lifestyle already there when they're off of that GLP-1. So they can sustain the weight loss that they already had. And to your point, when people gain their weight back with these drugs, it's because that food noise comes right back. And I think that's one of the reasons why people go on it, is because they're always hungry. And to that point, they're probably yo-yo dieting all the time. And so you really, like to your point, you really have to get those habits in line. And then in conjunction with the GLP-1s, it works miraculously. But there's also some people who, I think you mentioned this before, take these drugs and they're already eating 300 calories. And so they don't even see a bit of weight loss.
Oh yeah. Especially, and again, this is from what I've seen and, our experience working with people in our practice, but Ozempic especially, you get someone who's eating 600 calories a day, they're taking Ozempic. First of all, you're already at 600. You shouldn't be that low to begin with. But if leaving that aside, you can't go less than 600 or you will literally waste away. Like clinical malnourishment, that is not okay on any level. I don't care, it would be, right. It'd be very, 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 very difficult. Like someone would need to be in the most ridiculous situation possible to allow that to just, persist and be okay. But at the same time, right, most people aren't in that super, 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 super 6 standard deviations from the mean, type of situation. So if you just think you're going to go take this injection, you're good. Like you are going to be sadly mistaken. But if you're doing the work underneath, you can get to that point where you're not on it. And like I was telling you, like the person I know who lost 140 pounds, I was actually, fortunate enough, I was able to see them. Like I met them, hung out with them like 8 months after they were off of the drug and they had not gained a single pound back. Like it was absolutely insane.
That's awesome.
But that's the best thing though, is they did all the underlying stuff and they figured it out. And they're like, hey, I'm still making my meals. I'm still prepping. I'm still focused on sleep. I'm still doing all the little things that need to be done to sustain weight loss. And again, the food noise part, to your point, I think is huge in terms of shutting that down for people. But on the flip side, if you can then overpower that food noise with, this is who I am, this is how I do things, you are going to be successful regardless, with or without a GLP-1, by the way. You can do all of these other things without needing a GLP-1 in the picture. And if you can do it that way, I'm not going to say it's better, but at least then you're not having to introduce another variable into the picture.
Yeah. And another medication, right? Like not everybody wants to take a whole bunch of meds. I mean, as a diabetic, we already have insulin. Maybe some people are on other things. And so it's just one more thing that you have to remember.
And again, the GLP-1s also have the utility in that they replace other hormones that may be missing because people with diabetes, our pancreas is all jacked. There's certain things we miss in addition. But again, on the flip side, most people, not everyone, but most people are going to them for the weight and the weight effects. And knowing that, okay, this isn't going to do it independently. Like I'm sure there are people who they're doing everything perfect, but if they're just not sleeping, right? Or their sleep's interrupted. And there have been studies that have shown if your sleep is awful and you're interrupted versus if you sleep well, the weight that you will lose, the composition of the weight you will lose will shift. If you don't sleep well, the weight you lose will be muscle. If you sleep amazing, the weight you lose will more likely be fat. And that's what you want. So there's so many little things. I feel like people want to jump to what seems to be the simplest or what seems to be the hottest, newest trend, when the fundamental things, even though they might seem boring, tend to be the best things in the grand scheme for people.
Oh, 100%. I feel like we're just in this decade of we want it now, where the instant gratification is just so real. And I feel like people they don't realize that you can do this in a sustainable way long term if you just, get these habits under your belt and be consistent with them.
Well, and even still, right? Like I know right now I'm in my own deficit phase right now because I just figured, hey, I might as well do it a little bit. Got some stuff coming up I want to make sure that I'm, ready for. And with that, like the stuff that I do, granted, yes, do I have the advantage of being a dietitian? Sure. But like at the same time, okay, if I'm plugging my food into, an app, so I know what I'm doing for dosing and I know what I'm doing for calories and protein and carbs, et cetera, maybe that takes 90 seconds. Maybe if I'm at a restaurant, it takes minutes. That's 3 minutes. Maybe you do that, okay, 3 times a day. I'm spending 10 minutes a day on a couple extra decisions that other people may or may not decide to do. But if those, let's just round up to 15 minutes total. If I'm spending 15 minutes that someone else may not otherwise, is 15 minutes to someone worth it? Like, is that worth it to you? If you're listening to this, is 15 minutes worth it to be able to get that weight loss that you're looking for? Is it worth it to have the blood sugars that you want, to feel your best, to do the things you want to do? Or is it more like, it's too inconvenient. I'll just, deal with the ups and downs. Like, I don't think that's even a question.
No, there are so many things that you're doing during your day, 15 minutes, that you could totally replace that with tracking your food, adjusting your insulin.
Scrolling. Well, I love TikTok, but still, yeah.
Listen, me too. It could suck you in. I'm just saying.
But that's the point, right? I mean, it can be Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, whatever. They're all the same thing, right? I'm sure. If you are listening to this and you are really not sure, you're like, I just really don't know where I would have 15 minutes to, and even then, like you can break it at 5 minutes or 3 minutes, but I don't even know where I'd have pockets of time. I would challenge you to sit down, spend one day as you're going through your day and just time log everything you do, every single solitary thing you do. And it might be really annoying. First of all, that will take time in and of itself. But second of all, if you want to be really curious, hey, at, 10:36 to 10:47, I scrolled on social media. Okay, there's 11 minutes right there. From 10:47 to 10:51, I went to the bathroom. Okay, reasonable. 10:51 to 11 o'clock, I mindlessly scrolled through my email and responded to 2 emails that could have taken me 30 seconds. You see what I'm saying? Like there's pockets of time that we don't even realize we're missing. And we could have done whatever needed to be done. I mean, if you're like, hey, I want to plug my food in, but I can't in the moment, take a picture of it, do it after. You're not going to be perfect regardless. Like unless you literally weighed every single thing out at your house. If you're at a restaurant, you're not going to be perfect. Just do the best you can. But it's the effort. It's the concerted energy towards an outcome. That's the biggest thing.
No, exactly. And I guarantee you, everybody has that time when they slide into bed and they check their phone for whatever they're doing. It's texting, TikTok, IG, whatever. You can have that 10, 15 minutes at night to just get it all done. Track everything you're going to eat the day before if you want to. And that way you don't even have to touch it the next day until you track again. Like there's so many ways that you can get this done.
Well, and the other thing is if someone's listening, like this is really overwhelming. I don't want to have to think about all this. There are amazing people like Kyra and I that are dietitians with diabetes and are educators, and we can assist in this and do basically all the thinking for you. So all you need to do is show up and just do a couple little things here and there and then tell us how you did. And then we give you better stuff. And as you keep improving over time, your blood sugars get better, your A1C's in the low 6s, high 5s, you drop pounds and you feel good. And then you're happy and everything's great.
Exactly.
Right? Like we do this every single day with people. So if that's something you want to do, message me on social. I can make sure if you're like, yo, Kyra seems awesome. People like her more than me. I can make sure.
No.
Not. Kyra's like, obviously people like her. Like,
no, that is bull-faced lie.
But regardless, though, we are able to help on that journey if you want someone that understands it and lives with it as well, who's also done it, been there, done that, got the t-shirt themselves. Because, I mean, it's not like we haven't gone through weight loss phases ourselves.
Exactly. And to that point, I was going to say, like, Ben, you're in a cut right now. I think we're all in a cut right now. We don't do anything different than we would to our patients with ourselves. And so, we're just going through it too. And we'll share with you if you would like to know how to do this.
The irony is I actually, way back in the day, I used to guinea pig on myself before I'd do anything. I'd be like, let's see how this goes. Is this sustainable? Is this doable? Do I hate my life? And I'm like, I kind of like, well, and then I start, you try different things and you're like, oh, I actually can kind of vibe with how this format goes. And people want to drop pounds quicker. Sometimes there's a deadline and you have to. And then on the flip side, there's times where you can take your sweet time and take a little longer. And then when you're done, you end at a place where you're already at your resting calorie or your, normal calorie threshold. So you don't have to worry about reversing back to a traditional metabolism from going super low. So to break that down in less sciencey words, instead of taking your metabolism and cratering it to try to drop the weight, There are times you can go a lot slower. And when you're done, you just eat that level of calories and you're good instead of having to read your metabolism back up from low again. So there's plenty of ways to do it. There's multiple ways to do it. There's no one correct way to do it, except for that you fundamentally have to be in a calorie deficit and your blood sugars have to be in range. And if done well, I would just like to point this out, and I'm sure you can attest to this. If you are doing this well and you are on point with your adjustments, especially on your meds, your blood sugars will likely be better in a cut than they will be outside of a cut.
For sure. 1000%. I can't even tell you.
Like, it's insane. And I'm not saying that's why I'm in one right now. I'm not mad about a byproduct of it. I'm not going to be mad at all. But like when you tell me like, hey, I've had bad sites and my average is still superior to times when I am not in a cut, I'm like, interesting. But like anything else, your body will adapt and then you won't be at a cut anymore. So keep that in mind. The goal is to be able to have great blood sugars with or without, no matter the situation, no matter where you are. I don't care if you're on an island or if you're on vacation or you're in your house and you're, wherever you are, you want amazing blood sugars and doing the things you need to do to maintain them.
For sure.
But any other weight loss wisdom or random topics that are related to this time of year?
Let's clear something up. So I've had a lot of clients come in with absolutely horrific blood sugars, and all their goal is to lose weight, right? They don't care about the blood sugars. They just want to lose weight. You mentioned that it's, difficult to lose weight if blood sugars are all over the place.
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, there's a few reasons, right? One would be if you're all over the place, you're likely bouncing, meaning you are likely eating, your number shoots up, you're flying down, you're probably low, you shoot up again because you overcorrect it, you're flying down. So all of that averages out probably to, who knows, it could be anywhere from 150, 160 to 210, 230. Like we have no idea. But what that does guarantee is you probably feel like garbage because you are literally bouncing up and down and up and down and up and down. And you are likely ingesting additional calories because every single time that you have a low, you have to account for that low. And those calories, unfortunately, still count. So unless you are factoring those in, like you mentioned with the reserve earlier, you are likely going to be eating more calories than you want to just by virtue of your blood sugars. That has nothing to do with the rest of your deficit. So if you're just constantly up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, cool, you're going to feel like trash and your air quote should be in that most cases. On the flip side though, if you're like, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be smart about it, you don't have to be constantly bouncing up and down. But I always will tell people, I'm like, hey, let's do two things at the same time. This how I know you do this with patients as well. Let's start out by getting everything stable, on the nutrition side. Let's get the blood sugar sorted first. At the same time, let's make sure metabolically you are ready to safely and sustainably lose weight because your blood sugars are set. If I know food composition is set, workouts are set, blood sugars are set, everything's there, metabolism's ready, everything else is done. And all you have left to focus on is the weight loss. You've done everything else. And now all that is left is this weight loss side that you can put all of your attention and time into. And oh, by the way, your byproduct is, oh, my A1C is 6. Oh no, so sad. Like that. And that's the beauty of it, right? Like you already then taken out the hardest part, the weight, you already have everything else figured out. You have the entire infrastructure built. And now it's, oh, I did a deficit. Let's make sure that the adjustments are proper for the insulin and the food and everything else and the timing. And then you're good. That's why.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why we always, and I know that it's tough because like you said, people always want to lose weight, but the numbers are off. The numbers are going to honestly lead the show unless you put them in their place first.
100%. And to your point too, I had a client a little bit ago who had really high blood sugar. She wasn't really fluctuating a whole lot, but her blood sugars were high a lot all the time. And she really wanted to lose weight. Well, she was already in a huge deficit that she put in herself. And I was assuming that if she's having that many high blood sugars, she's probably peeing out some calories too. So that puts her in even more of a deficit. And so if she's already in a deficit and then her blood sugars are high and she's peeing out more calories, there's no way in hell you can lose weight because your metabolism is already, trash, and your blood sugars aren't in a place where your body's going to let you lose weight either. And so it's kind of like a double whammy. If your blood sugars are high and you want to lose weight, you got to get the blood sugars in range first.
Well,
no doubt.
Things dysregulated once your number's high, right? Like once you're, oh, hey, my blood sugar is, 260, everything, your muscle protein synthesis is going to, every single process in the body, even just blood moving from one appendage back to the heart is going to slow. And the nutrients going from, out into the body, gonna slow. Everything will slow, not the way you want it to. And then as a result of that, everything's going to be worse and just not as efficient or effective. So to your point too, right? Then the body's like, oh, let's, start to get rid of some of this, let's get rid of some of this body fat. Well, wait, I can't because I'm in such a crazy deficit that I already feel that I'm starving. I'm not going to let go of anything. It has to be nail the blood sugars. I always tell people blood sugars are 1A, weight is 1B. We're going to hit them both at the same time. We have to have the blood sugars lined up, ready to go first, while we get the rest of everything else cooked up and ready to roll, and then have at it. Let's knock the weight off and keep your numbers happy. And things are, when people are willing, I've seen this with our, the patients that I had especially, but when people are willing and you're like, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to commit to making this happen, good things 9 out of 10 times will happen.
Absolutely.
People want to rush the process, and rushing the process never ends well. Ever. If it took you 3 years, to get to this point, it ain't going to go away in 3 months. Like, I'm really sorry to say that, but it's just not going to.
No.
I'll do my best, but it's just not.
Takes time. Time and consistency yields results, people.
That's right. And it will work. Like in 2025, it will work. You will drop your pounds with diabetes and have great blood sugars. We are happy to help facilitate that journey. And we are grateful, if you decide, hey, I love them. I want to make sure that I can do this once and for all the right way, best for my body. Holler at me, Instagram, now TikTok again. But, message me at Man of Zeal, MANOFTZEEL. Hit us up at yourdiabetiesinsider.com. Let us know how we can best support you, and we will gladly assist you on your journey. We all have type 1. We're all dietitians. We all have exercise backgrounds, and we're ready to help have an amazing 2020. So Let's do it up. Kyra, it's been a pleasure. It always is a pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me on, Ben.
And I will see you in an episode soon. And that's an amazing episode of the Your Diabetes Insider podcast. Let's go.
Hope you're ready for the next episode. Hey.